The first orphanage that we went to, when we pulled up, there was a little boy standing out front, and he will forever be in my memory.
And he was screaming and crying and stomping his feet. We didn't know what was wrong with him.
And later we learned that he had just been abandoned that day, and when the gates were opening to let our bus in, he thought that that was his parents coming back for him.
He kept saying that Mommy and Daddy left, and he wanted Mommy and Daddy, and he wanted to go back home.
A kid was like stomping on the ground because his mom and dad just gave him, and it broke Jesus' heart, it broke our heart.
It was sad because all these kids had just kind of been dropped there. The people that were trying to take care of them, there was only 2 or 3, I believe, but definitely hurt.
Seeing some of the kids there that could very well have been kids that my kids go to school with, thinking how different their lives are from the way my kids grew up in America.
A very humbling place where you wanted to do so much to help so many, and yet hugs and kisses and love was the best thing that I think we could offer those children.
You know, your little barrier just goes down and you just start picking them up and loving on them, and they all wanted some attention. Even if it was a short amount of time, to them, it's huge.
Our time was brief, but I felt like we did make the most of our opportunities of all the children there, hugging them, picking them up, loving on them. It's wonderful how, God breaks down those barriers of communication when you're just there to share His love with His children.
Actually, the big thing that day was that we took them apples.
And they ate them from the stem down to the core, and when they dropped them in the mud holes, they picked them up and they ate them.
And they asked for 7 volunteers to go up to the baby nursery. I jumped at that chance because I wanted to see what the infants were like.
Which was a horrific scene up there. There was a child in the corner that was very sick and probably was not going to make it. Babies were 2 and 3 in a crib.
They don't get a lot of time to be held because there's not enough house mothers to take care of them. So we just held those children and did a little bit of medical exams, and we were able to leave some medications for a couple of them. But again, mostly we hugged on them and loved them, and they all cried when we left.
For just that time that we were there, we held the children and we talked to them, even though we didn't speak the same language, and we loved them. After I know this is here, how can I turn my back?
One love, one blood.
So the following day, we did, have the opportunity to worship in Honduras with a local church there. That was very awesome.
And it was probably a 2.5 hour service.
There were no inhibitions during worship. Everybody's hands were up, praising God, everyone.
It was all in Spanish. So I sat there and I was thinking how we don't have the same language, but we do share the same God, and we do have love, and that's what I wanted to give to those kids.
We saw some of the private orphanages, and it was just such a difference.
And then after church, we took them all to Power Chicken, which is similar to our Bojangles.
There was at least 25 children there, plus the 21 of us, and the children were just enjoyed every minute of that filling of their bellies.
These kids really rarely have an opportunity to go out and fellowship and hang out.
And you got that one-on-one right there, like sitting with the kid you were beside of.
And then we drove to Canopy Land, which is of a place that there's just all kinds of different activities.
For the younger ones, there were, bouncy houses and trampolines that they got to jump on.
Playground and trampoline, and went to the zip line.
There was even, kind of a paintball area. When Adam decided that it would be fun to give all the kids paintball guns and let us run around without any guns and get shot, and that was exciting.
One of the older girls there, she had a birthday party that day.
The mom explained to us how they did birthdays there because they don't have any money to exchange gifts, so they exchange blessings for the coming year and how they feel about that person.
And a bunch of the kids would step forward and tell about how much they loved her and they want good things for her this year.
After that, I think the most exciting part for me was talking to Angie, who manages the Hogar Esperanza orphanage. That orphanage is her family, those are her kids. Got to talk to her about some of the needs that they have at that orphanage, and found a way to plug our Sunday school class into helping with specifically one of those needs, which was one of the kids that needed a knee surgery.
You would not know it if you didn't know it, that they came from orphanages, and you would think they were just one big family.
And that was a great day for us and them, because otherwise they would never get opportunities for something like that.
We had the opportunity to visit again the Mosquito area, which is where Port de Lempira is.
We landed on a dirt runway. We walked to the place that we would ultimately stay. It felt like I was going back in time.
The area is beautiful. I mean, it's poverty everywhere, but it's still beautiful.
We went to Mama Tara's, and it was really good when the kids came out and they remembered us from the last time that we were there.
And they lit up when they saw us. They absolutely recognized us from a year ago, and I think the hope that we shared just by being there and returning to see them again was one of the most profound things.
Just to start playing with them and talking to them. And
that was a good day, though, to get to meet the kids from Mama Tara's who were actually going to help, and then also to meet the orphans at the House of Hope.
Where you've got kids that get super excited. They ran up and just wanted to play, and it was fun to see some of the other folks, Clayton specifically. I think those kids could not get enough of Clayton.
Didn't want to let him go. He was just like a magnet for kids.
When I think about Mama Tara's, I think about just the team, coming from very different areas of life with very different skills.
We did a lot of projects, one of those being we dug a trench to redirect the water from getting into the outdoor kitchen.
I worked diligently on that ditch with a mattock and a shovel.
And I swung that pickaxe.
Cut a window into the sort of the shack that they cook out of. It's very smoky. Cut another window there, put it on hinges, and have another way to breathe a little better.
Building the shelves, just simple things like shelves in the kitchen.
Cut grass, weed eated, dug a little bit on the wall.
The idea that we were digging a trench for a fence that would ultimately protect them and give them the ability to have things like running water with a water pump that won't get stolen, to be able to plant fruit, to plant vegetables, to really take care of themselves.
So they can have healthy stuff for them to eat.
But one of the kids came up and helped, picked up a shovel, and he helped me for at least an hour and a half. I want to believe that he really understood the significance of what that fence would be for them moving forward.
All the kids there, they all wanted to help, to finish a screw off or finish hammering a nail or helping us dig and all of those things.
The chicken coop was a big blessing.
I had an opportunity to fix a chicken coop, which was funny based on some recent practice I had had in the United States. The idea behind fixing the chicken coop was to save their chickens from being stolen. Someone was sneaking in at night and stealing chickens, which is a food source for them.
I think the big thing was that we got electricity going through there. And there's Scott, that was his project throughout the week.
First of all, it's amazingly dark there at night, so getting this power run so that they could get it attached is huge for them, just to be able to have lights on for safety at night.
He ran wires throughout Mama Tara's.
To take the generator over to make sure that all the wiring was correct, we did test it and everything came on.
And to see the kids and to see Mama Tara so happy about lights, something that we take for granted every day.
Mama Tara, she lifted her hands up and got to see it turn on, so that was a really big deal for all the kids to see the lights come on and see what it's going to look like.
We also shored up the bunk beds before the mattresses came.
The delivery of mattresses that this church has been very involved and supportive.
That was a really neat day, the day that the mattresses came. The kids were just thrilled.
Every project we did was just little things we take for granted. It was just so huge for them.
Wendy gave all the girls haircuts.
I was probably blessed more with that, just how good it made them feel. And you could tell so many of them, if they had ever had a haircut, it had been years.
This year was very different for me. We were able to return with a group of 4 or 5 nurses and a physician.
We set up a clinic at Mama Tara's in a classroom, used the desk for exam tables, and had a wonderful medical staff with Claire and Karen, Gina and Lori. Stacy helps as our receptionist.
I would talk to people and get their name, and I wrote it on a card.
I was doing basic assessments on everybody that came in.
They sent them over to me. I checked their neck and all their skin to make sure they had any sores. And then they went over to Mrs. Klein, and she checked their throat and their feet. And so they got a head-to-toe evaluation, and then we sent them to the doctor.
And then I was the pharmacy, and so by the time they got to me, they had a little index card that had what their diagnosis was and what medicines, and it was very much like a family practice office you might have in the United States.
We saw all the children there. We saw all the adults that worked there.
And then as time went on, the word got out in the surrounding area.
We were able to see about 150 people in 3 days, and I think had we been there longer, it would have just grown each day.
One of the people that came the third day was a little old lady who had come from a village. She'd come 83 kilometers, which is about 50 miles, I think. That was kind of humbling.
The only way that we could get the clinic to work was through an interpreter. And it was by God's grace that Max, he happened to be home on some kind of break.
Max is a Honduran student who grew up in Mama Tara's. That's his home.
And he spoke fluent English, he spoke Spanish and Mosquito. And so this young man was invaluable. His ambition is to be a physician.
It was a pleasure seeing these people. They clearly appreciated what we were doing. I went with anticipation of hoping that I could offer them something. Turns out if you just offer them anything, you're doing something more than what they had to start with.
I felt like in Honduras, that was nursing at its absolute finest. I got to use the gift that God had given me, and it was a joy to be able to share that.
It all worked out the way God wanted it to, and I just think that we all feel very blessed.
A lot of folks at Bethel have begun to sponsor the children and the homes where they live.
We were actually blessed with having the opportunity to sponsor a child, and this is a child that we have the opportunity to see again. And
our family sponsored a girl that we met last year, and we really enjoyed getting to spend time with her this year and have been in touch with her throughout the year.
She's nice and kind. We give her some clothes and we pray for her.
What a blessing it was to finally meet the little boy that I've sponsored since our first trip.
I always felt like the real impact was just in the kids and seeing their faces light up whenever they got that little bit of attention and somebody to play with them.
Hopefully they saw God through us, the caring and all the love that we showed them.
I felt like, created a really strong bond with the kids there, just the short time we had with them. It's almost like it was family. It's like they really just adopted us.
We woke up early on the last day in Puerto Lumpia and packed up and walked to the airport, and we were met by a large group from Mama Tara's orphanage.
And it was probably a 2-mile walk to the airport, and they came and saw us before our flight left early in the morning.
For them to wake up, meet us at the airport was amazing. It meant we must have had some kind of connection and impact there.
We have a relationship with those people now. When you've just heard about it, it's different than when you've been there and seen it. It's put a face to missions.
Our calling to help minister to them, and it's not only just visiting in person, but it's making a commitment.
An experience like this is truly life-changing. There are many opportunities to be the hands and feet of Christ.
When you think about this church supporting so much of those orphanages, it should make every member of Bethel Church proud that they have a team just showing the love of Jesus. It's a great, great mission that this church has.
I saw God just working through us. He just was everywhere. He was in those children as they returned the love to us that we were given to them.
All of them wanted to be held. And that's something you can't do unless you go personally. It's good to send money, but it's nice to be there and appreciate the love that you feel from them.
There are lots of needs that we can meet with money, but you have to be there in person to share Christ's love.
I would say the trip was the beginning for me. I've been introduced to this need, and it's got a place in my heart. There's very few days to go by that there is not some thought about that trip, but really about how to kind of change things going forward.
Maybe we can get some new people to come and help them so they can do it with us.
It's a short-term trip with a long-term mission.